Some more, believe it or not, all right, regarding action facts. Little local humor. Here was the version we were up to when we stopped last time. And it goes like this, that only creatures given to, or creatures privy to facts, are corrupted by them. All right? Only creatures privy to facts feel corrupted by them. Are only beings who can think feel that they are debased, brutalized by thought. Remember, we're talking about a world, the world of man viewed from a perspective of things being divided up into acts and facts. Consider these historical sentiments that usually go by the tune of those who think the most suffer the most. Now, you find that hidden in Christian mysticism. You find it in almost every religion. You certainly find it in philosophy. You find it in street wisdom all the way from the Egyptians, the early ones, not the current ones, to the Greeks, through the Renaissance, through English philosophy. And many human beings, even those with college educations and decent IQs, at the right time, even their nervous system will go over the idea that those who think the most suffer the most. Now, within that are several areas. One is the kinds of rituals, the methods that have always and continue to be employed, wherein men believe that they are trying to stop thought. And it goes under the heading, the accepted heading of those who are interested, as being a, in fact, higher calling. It is not. It's not like, well, I've got eczema, and so I'll get rid of it. That is thinking. It's not that. They look at the human condition as, well, we all at times think too much. The Zen, probably in your general experience being one of the most readily available, updated, the idea that thinking cuts you off from some sort of intrinsic, more basic reaction to life, of being able to just look at nature and love it and just be spontaneous and turn around to somebody on the street and go, hello, I love you, may I kill you, or whatever it is to be a Zen around the Bay Area. If not around Kyoto, but at any rate. And so you have, it's not looked at as I was saying, it's not looked at as a remedial effort to go back and to stop thought, or that this is something shady and suspicious of which I might be ashamed or should be ashamed. It's looked at as this even goes beyond the normal human condition, that we all think too much. The ponds of our minds are too disturbed by little breezes here and there of income tax, or they've increased the price of white cloud bathroom tissue or something. That those of us chosen by the gods, in fact, will work on these methods to try and, sometimes they don't say this, but it always comes out translated in every language, stop thought. Now you have it all the way, not just as Zen, but you have it in these kinds of meditation methods that have been hawked in the 60s and the 70s from India. It still goes on. It went on in Christianity. It went on in the every religion, and many secular efforts believed that there would be something to be gained if you could in some way stop thought. Also, that's a pretty easy one, but also, and remembering we're just using those things that are readily available to talk about because they are strange and perplexing enough, without any of us, if we could, trying to think up something even stranger and more perplexing than what's going on out there. At least any of you who might be tuning in hoping to find something strange and perplexing. How can you make up something strange and perplexing? Now, ordinarily you might think, well, If you're really trying, you'd make up something and say, well, I'm going to talk to you tonight about UFOs have been landing in my backyard and giving me secret messages. Even if you didn't mean it, if you just made it up, it might be more interesting, you might say. But see, I couldn't make that up because it's already been made up, you see? And so I refer to that. Didn't follow that there. Not real important. Just consider a merry-go-round on springs, on Monroe shock absorbers. Maybe a merry-go-round kind of jacked up in the back like intellectuals love to do in Alabama with their pickups and four-wheelers. All right, anyway, it's out there, and here's a little more subtle than those kinds of methods of attempting to stop thought. How about this? This goes on, and it appears to be normally acts of a political nature, which out there they can call it that, but consider we're talking about electrical energy and the way it manifests itself through man, and the way it particularly manifests itself that you can look at as being in the world of acts and the world of facts. That also under this heading of those who think the most suffer the most. Could you tie it together with artistic, literary censorship? I'm just using their terms. Throughout history. And it happens. It will be assaults from an institutionalized, from the government, from powers that be, through readily identifiable and respected figures in the city of the time. It will be assaults on facts, comma, in the midst of an area that may freely accept crime, blood sports, all sorts of very questionable, from one view, acts are just taken as everyday occurrences. No need to look blank. Think about it. Think about areas right now in your lifetime, historically, right quick, run back to a hard external example. An area that is really apparently under the grip, say, of an autocrat. One-man tyrannical rule. A despot. You can always count there's going to be extreme censorship of literature, art, all the arts. I'm just dividing literature so it really gets you to see that it all amounts to facts as opposed to acts, other than just decorative art, which there's nothing wrong with. But if you're talking about arts that the people there believe are speaking to me. The arts are dealing in facts. And you can have this kind of tyrannical situation with this one man, and it will always be a good old maniacal monkey grip on facts. And yet at the same time, he may allow all sorts of blood, gladiators, bullfighting. He will permit his soldiers to go out and periodically, without any great ramifications back on them, to rape, plunder, kill a few citizens on the weekend just for fun. That kind of feel of acts being of a brutal nature and being just almost part of the everyday landscape, that situation can exist, and yet simultaneously, and even simultaneously in northern areas, this same city, this same locale, will be mounting a continuous frontal assault on facts. Do you follow? That many acts that just from most people's viewpoint, that they might find to be brutal, under those conditions, the powers that be, the guy, let's blame it on one guy for the time being, one outlet for life's energy, ignores that. What he finds to be the real corrupting, the possibly brutalizing from his view area is going to be in facts, books, pamphlets, drawings. Well, one that should be really plain, how about the commonality in all religions of their active attacks on thought, that is, / facts, as being of a singular danger, Now, all the major religions, those that can really whip up a crowd and keep up a clergy, they certainly condemn acts. They all do. Now, you just bypass it. If you go into a brand new religion you never heard of, and you're just going to look around, and they say, well, we'd like to acquaint you with what we're against. When they start about the acts, you know what they're going to say. I mean, even if there were any, or was any religious fervor in Antarctica, the Church of the Snowbirds or something, as soon as they say, well, we'll tell you the kind of acts you've never even seen this group of people, never heard of the church, you know what the acts are going to be condemned. Everybody does. But then they reserve it. You just never looked at it this way. Their most stringent cry of alarm is to watch out for the dangers, and then they go into the world of facts. That, hey, yeah, well, it's one thing, you shouldn't kill somebody, but, God almighty, you shouldn't go around hating people, thinking about killing them. And the first part of the act is like, they just do it like, well, everybody knows that. Thou shalt not kill. But listen, don't go around, don't be mad at your fellow man because he is of a different religion or he's of a different hairstyle, that he has a different political opinion. They will in a way that you just never analyze. They will, all the religions, they single out, not using my terms of course, but they single out the world of facts as being of a singular danger. It is treated as though the kinds of acts that would be corruptive from their view, sinful, I guess, that the acts are just so crude, so childish, so basic, so well known, so easily recognized, that you just almost post them at the back of the church or the temple or whatever, or you put in a little pamphlet because everybody knows, don't kill, don't steal. Yeah, I knew all that. But what's your church really about? Well, and then they get into the world of facts. Well, we believe, and one of the common ones, of course, with less than major religions, is then it gets in with the facts, besides we don't kill and we don't steal and all that, is that, and then they get into factual things like our leader is from another planet, because he said he is, and the only way he can stay alive is to have 3 new Coupe de Villes given to him every year. It'll be something factual that we must all, if we're the sexual type that he likes, we must all spend at least 1 weekend a month with him in a cheap motel. Now, this sounds like acts maybe, but you understand, it is now into the world of facts. It is not them saying, don't do so-and-so. They're saying now in factual things that has no basis on an act, other than all facts follow acts. But what I mean is, they're saying that we have got to have your allegiance. It might be one thing, though, whether you refuse to go and spend the weekend or to contribute to buy him a new Cadillac, if you actually did it. But the cutoff line is that you don't agree to. That they say, well, now, if you're going to join up, you can't steal and you can't... Yeah. All right, now let's get into the real stuff. Now, you've got to give... We collect every month. We buy him a new Cadillac, and if you're a female, assuming the guy was that persuasion, then you've got to spend 1 weekend when you're called with him in a cheap motel. Now, does everybody agree? They're talking factual, because if somebody says, well, wait a minute, I just married my wife. Hey, throw that guy out. Well, wait a minute, why should he get a new Cadillac? What? They're asking, do you agree to the facts? And the other side of it is a tacit, singular emphasis placed upon facts. Maybe I got off too eccentric on you. It is like, it comes down to this, the standing up, the agreement, the swearing in of the Boy Scout pledge or whatever you give for religions. And they say, do you promise now to be a Presbyterian? Or, you're now a Catholic, make the sign. They ask you to agree to facts. You can say that's an act to do all this, and they sprinkle water on your head or whatever. But that's not it, because they say, do you agree to the facts? And you say yes. And of course the danger is, if they even point out, what does every religion call those not of their religion? Well, besides heathens and the lost and the damned, but on what basis? Not that they just live on the other side of the world, not just the basis that they are not of the same race or nationality, but on the basis that they don't agree to our facts. That we are Muslims and they say they're Jews. Or we're a Buddhist and they say they're Hindus. Oh, you people have got to straighten up. And it's not just on the basis if you try to stop them. Surely all of you see this, but one more little quick. It's not on the basis you stop a Muslim and say, well, exactly what it is about Hindus that you don't like. It's not going to be, regardless of some guy on the street. I'm talking about the larger kind of institutional view, a larger area of life's energy going through a group of men. So if you ask Muslims, what is it you don't like about Hindus? It's not going to be simply, well, they dress funny. They worship on Tuesday, and everybody knows you should worship on Wednesday morning. It's simply the fact that they don't agree to the facts. That is the best description they could give. That is what they're getting to, is they are corrupting, they are perhaps brutal, they are dangerous. Why? I mean, because they worship on Wednesday? Because they refuse to eat such and such food? It's not just acts, no. It's simply that they don't agree to the facts. That is the danger. That is the basis of being corrupted, not the acts. Oh, it's bad enough. We all know you should not eat bread on Thursday. But they won't even agree to it. They won't agree even if they can't stop doing it. They've been doing it for generations, so maybe, like a smoker, a heavy drinker, you got to kind of wean yourself, but they won't even try. They deny the fact that God or somebody does not want you to eat bread on Wednesday. They deny it. Can you believe that? And of course, all the people going, that there is the danger, because their act, pardon me, they can clean up. That is, this group I'm speaking of knows that this other group, this group outside the great institutional umbrella of salvation, they know that it is humanly possible that these people, regardless of generations of lockstep faux pas, regardless of that, these people, it is humanly possible they could stop eating bread on Wednesday. Now, I know that, you know that, everybody knows that. But the danger is, they won't agree to it. They won't even agree that they should do it. See? And it's not just over the fence from one group to another. It is inside the group itself. That the danger, a singular possible area of total corruption is in the facts, not the acts. In that old idea of men saying those who think the most suffer the most, I would also like to, if not a post-mortem, do a kind of trisection and point out that the qualifier in the sentence, those who think the most, the qualifier the most, is unnecessary. I mean, it is for ordinary people, or they wouldn't even listen to it. But it is unnecessary. Because all a man has got to do is think it all. All he got to do is just think the minimum amount. It's not a matter of those who think the most. That just sounds... how else could you get people to even pay attention to it? If you said, those who think suffer the most. I mean, that's just a zephyr shattered in the wind, if you know what I mean. A rude noise in the dark. Soon and quickly forgotten, more or less. It has got to say those who think the most, but that's not necessary. Once a man thinks, which is the minimum, but once he is thinking, you got the suffering. Because once he is thinking, his old primary existence is sufficiently corrupted. And you can't uncorrupt anything in the 3D world. There are all sorts of things that apparently you can do and run around in circles. You can't push a car up a hill with a rope. You can't make a dead man horny. And you cannot uncorrupt a man's old primary existence once it has been corrupted. I'm using their terms, not corrupted. And it's corrupted as soon as a man thinks. Not thinks too much. Not he who thinks the most. Once he thinks, the old primary world is forever corrupted. The old primary world has been debased and brutalized from one view. And you cannot uncorrupt something. You cannot take rotten meat and through some process unrot it. That's just one of the few things. I hate to tell you, those with you just got a car with a dead battery downhill, or any of you women who might be married to There are just some things you can't do. You cannot back up some things. And so it's not a matter of a human somewhere, maybe at an early age, heard those who think the most suffer the most, and some little nipper somewhere took that to heart or to head and thought, in that case, I'll never think the most. Sorry, kid, it's too late, because the most is unnecessary. That is just headlines for the city to get people to pay attention. Because once the intellect is fired up, and once a man is thinking at all, then the old part is corrupted. In one view, the old part is now going to be suffering. You can wrap it up even and put in a sentence and say, thus will a man be civilized and believe he suffers therefrom. Period. End of paragraph. Consider, taken from our friend Kyrut, that the less certain the outcome of your activities, the more you must dress up. I got a laugh 15 or 20 minutes ago. And of course, all of you remember it. Just because something makes you laugh doesn't mean it's what? Funny. Believe it or not, Kyrut sent me prior word about this and dared me to try and tie it in any way to the area of acts and facts. And he picked the wrong guy. Pardon me for bragging, but this is not really me anyway, so when I say me, it's, you know, whoever I really am. Although people could explain it other ways, obviously. Listen to this, because well, maybe I'll even hit some of the other ways if they don't hit you immediately. And at the city, it's all right. But those engaged in activities whose outcome is uncertain, the more uncertain it is, the more you've got to dress up. Real directly, men, people involved more directly with acts, which is the way it works out in the city, are people involved with activities that the end result of their service is guaranteed. The more they're involved with acts, automobile mechanics, plumbers, cab drivers, surely the more you're involved with that, the less you have to dress up. Now, in case any civilian just casually walked in, they might go, good God, what is this? Of course, in the obvious 101, tut, tut. Withal, when you get into the land of facts, economics, psychiatry, religion, all of the professions, as is noted particularly in the Western world, but an operational definition of the professions, the world of facts, are those engaged in services wherein legally they are not responsible. They do not guarantee the actual outcome of their work. The guarantee is that they give it their best shot based on the standard of what everybody else is shooting for. On that basis, their work is not guaranteed. But notice, in all the areas I mentioned, all the professions, psychiatry, just a splendid example, financial advisors, people dealing almost exclusively in the world of facts, those suckers are dressed to the nines. Whatever the hell that means, and even people in England can't say exactly what that means. They are people who are spiffed up. They are people who, if they were men, seem to have stepped right out of GQ. Think about it. I might also point out to you, as sort of an aside, in the artistic world, the advertising world, but all the areas of artistic. They're known, movie directors, just people in the world of arts and advertising are known, just accepted, for being casual dressers. Because none of that, psychiatry, economic forecasting, teaching, the world of academia, advertising, they do not have to guarantee their work. Whereas, and there's some legal basis, but it's more than that, a plumber, in a sense, or an automobile mechanic, no matter, don't take a cheap way out right quick and think, well, most mechanics don't know what they're doing. Tut, maybe. But they have to guarantee their work. They do, whether they say so or not. That is just the principle of those engaged in acts. If you pay an automobile mechanic, no matter how uneducated he may seem, no matter how dirty and undressed and unkempt he is, and you say, my carburetor went out, he says, I got one to fit this car, can you put it on for me? Yeah, I can put it on. And you'll put it on and you'll actually hook it up? Yes. He is guaranteeing whether he says so or not, and everybody expects it. I point out the legal principle, it's not just that. You usually understand the way life is wired up and works. For a plumber, my toilet stopped up. If he's going to come and stop your toilet, nobody, I repeat one more time, this is part of the nexus of the interchange of energy. It's not just legal matters and legal principles. You will not, no one would, you will not accept from a plumber, he goes in there, he works around, maybe he tells you beforehand he gets $50 an hour, and he goes in there and fools around with your toilet, and then he comes out and gives you the kind of story that a psychiatrist would give you if you took your kid for counseling. You took your son, your grandmother, to a psychiatrist, and he says, I get $250 an hour, and you said, well, my kid, he gives me the red ass. He just annoys me. He's smoking dope. He won't go to school. He's depressed. The psychiatrist says, right up my alley. You know, wait out here, and he takes him in there, and he keeps him 50 minutes. You run up a $250 bill, and he comes back out. And you know the kind of story he'll send the kid, you know, go get some candy, kid. And he's going to stand there and palaver to you. No. He is not going to say, well, I cured him, $250. You know, if he did, you'd immediately go quack, quack, because you know, you just never thought about it. If you know a psychiatrist is not going to come out and say, yeah. What if a plumber, or what if the mechanic goes in there and you go out and have a Coke and stand around, and 50 minutes later, he comes out of the shed with your old carburetor, and he throws it down like, you know, a worn out heart, or, you know, a kidney stone. No one's going to accept if he starts giving you that kind of song and dance. You know, if you say, well, is my car, you know, I'm on the way to Cleveland. Is the carburetor and everything fine? He goes, well, and he started talking to you about your carburetor in the same way, an acceptable way, that a psychiatrist would talk to you about your unruly, depressed child. No. But now think about it. Because what we're talking about here, believe it or not, it's a more complex view, and we're not just limited to what would be ordinary observations of some of this. We're not just fixed on matters of somebody getting their clothes dirty. See, because when I started out this paragraph and said, you know, the closer you are to acts, the less you have to dress up, because then an ordinary person can say, well, sure. What kind of person is going to get in there and work on a car or try to unstop a toilet wearing, you know, a $500 Cassini suit, you know, nice tie? That's ridiculous. I agree. I don't agree, but what the hell? I agree. That's not it, though. There is the movement of electrical energy behind all of this. And if you're ever going to be able to move your thinking system somewhere from the old site, you've got to be able to do such as this. Not some imitation of what we're talking about here, but you look around and it's everywhere. The obvious. That if I'd started this, or if you went in the city with ordinary people and you tried to say, have you ever noticed that those who have to deal more in acts, you know, really hands-on work, and they have to guarantee like a plumber, you're not going to pay them if you've got any sense and you know how the judicial system is. If you're just reasonable, if you pay a plumber to come in there and to change a pipe that burst on you or to unclog your toilet, and he wants to give you some kind of theoretical thing about why the stock market went up and down, you know the kind of thing that your broker does to you when one of his suggested stocks doesn't work out? Yeah. If a plumber did that to you, you wouldn't put up with it. Yeah, I understand that. But have you ever noticed that those who deal in work, that they have to actually produce what they promised? That, yeah, I can change your carburetor, and the guy actually changes it. You go in there, and when he gets through, and your car cranks, and it's getting fuel. Have you ever noticed that those people the more that they have to deal with actual acts, they don't have to dress up. Okay, so what? But then notice those that are more in the world of the mind, outside that world, those who must deal in ideas. Did you notice that they dress up? I mean, you're not going to go to a psychiatrist who's wandering around in shorts and a T-shirt, or a priest, in a jogging suit. You're not going to seek financial investment advice from a guy in overalls and work shoes. Yeah, so what? What the hell is this? There is other stuff afoot. Except the obviousness of it is so obvious nobody else would think about it. And then if somebody was dumb enough to try and point out some of this, to them that would be obviousness and dumbness at least doubled. Because, well, certainly a plumber is not going to wear a suit because he gets dirty. A mechanic's not going to. And a psychiatrist, on the other hand, he is not doing surgery. He's not going to get blood on him. So why not dress up? Why not indeed? Except, I start off this paragraph and tell you again that the less certain is the outcome of an activity, a human activity, the more you've got to dress up. Rather than putting a coda or an additional punchline on that punchline, let me take for every word just there for a second. You understand, if some of this, if an ordinary person was listening, they could listen to this and say, well, that's stupid because not only would somebody dealing in real, and they could start using my terms back on me. You can follow this. I do it all the time. I'll play their part. And they could appear that some ordinary person heard all this and followed some of it to some degree. And they say, well, what you're calling acts, people dealing on the level of acts as opposed to the world of facts, the world of ideas and thoughts. Plumbers and carpenters and automobile mechanics, those people do not dress up. For one, they would get dirty. It'd be ridiculous. No, I can't. They say that. But they could also go into other areas. They could even aspire to be more thoughtful. And they could even say, well, all right, even if they didn't get that dirty, a man's dress is also making a visual statement as to his social position. Because, God bless them, automobile mechanics as a rule are not in the same social strata as your average psychiatrist. They do not make as much. There's no joke in that. Maybe some of you know. The actual original joke was a lawyer and a plumber. But they could say the way a man dresses makes a visual. It's a note that we take visually, helping establish one's social position. Gives his financial background just to look at him. Now, there's no law, especially in our part of the world, that says that a shade tree mechanic down here with a Morgan building shed taking in cars, if he's got the money. There's no law that says that man cannot dress up in Bill Blass originals or whatever is hot and stand there and welcome you in, look at your car. Nothing says he can't. There's no law that says. The American Psychiatric Association or whatever the hell it is, I feel certain, does not have, has no need to have somewhere in their bylaws, thou shalt dress up. Or that somewhere it says specifically, you will not do analysis while dressed in your skivvies or in a bathing suit. You don't have to. Still, the ordinary person can say, well, all you're pointing out is so obvious that there's no other point to it. That you're either talking about the fact that just pragmatically, that certain professions, certain activities would get one dirty, and you would not want to soil good clothes. That you got to dress to fit the work you do. Okay. Plus, even if it didn't happen, what I just told you, that it is a kind of mark, even in the so-called classless societies, such as the great US of A, that it's still a mark, that people simply dress in a kind of way that's appropriate. They don't have to think about it. We don't enforce it. But in a way that's appropriate to your social position, that is appropriate to your occupation, that even mechanics, when they get through and get the grime off as best they can, they still, as a rule, do not go out and whip on a $1,000 suit. That dress has some social, psychological significance. We're not saying that doesn't. But doesn't it begin to strike you all the coincidences? I mean, if you look at it that way, that night after night, all we do, we're almost up to our little armpits in coincidences. Is everywhere you look. North, south, east, and west, and whatever the fifth one is. Everywhere you look, it's a damn coincidence. That is, I can point out something else that, wait a minute, and anybody that's coincidentally wired up to hearing this, they go, yeah, that's true, but what you just pointed out, by God, is true. To what end, I don't know, but it's true. Back to not only social statement, not only getting your clothes, keeping it appropriate to the work involved, whether it's dirty or not. Beyond all that is the fact. The fact, you cannot deny it. That the less certain, the less guaranteed, the less that anybody expects it to be guaranteed is your activities, any of your endeavors, the less they are certain, predictable, expected to be guaranteed. That an unstopped toilet is obviously an unstopped toilet. And there is nothing to discuss about it. Other than if the plumber say, I can't do it. It's either done or not done. When it's that certain, dress is very casual. It seems to be almost unimportant. The world of acts. But when you move gradually, if not abruptly, into the world of facts, which is operationally synonymous with the beginning of the theorem with which I started this paragraph, that is, the less certain is the outcome of your activity, the more you must dress up, then the more you are in the world of facts, wherein results are not guaranteed. The work cannot be guaranteed. The end result is uncertain. It's only that you can give it your best. But the end result is not guaranteed in the same way, and it's not obviously guaranteed. That is, you see whether your toilet is either stopped or unstopped. You crank the car and you know whether the carburetor is furnishing fuel or not. When you're in the world of facts, wherein there is no parallel certainty, the more that that's the case, the more you dress up. Who dresses up more than many of the world's religions? I thought psychiatry would be enough to get you, because everybody, I assume you have the same picture as most people would of a psychiatrist. That you see very few of them in soup lines. Very nice suits. Nice nails. One of the few groups, I think, who still wear French cuff shirts in the daytime. And who, amongst others, it's almost impossible for those of you who don't know to sue a psychiatrist in some legal way. There's almost no such legal animal as psychiatric malpractice. Unless your psychiatrist rapes you in front of 10 people or shoots you in downtown Manhattan. But there's almost no such thing as psychiatric malpractice. That is, there's almost no such thing as doing psychiatry wrong, because the end result can't be guaranteed. It's almost impossible to sue on the basis of religious malpractice. But who dresses up more? For those of you that might be watching, besides what I've already pointed out, this is also no attack. You're going to miss the whole thing. None whatsoever on psychiatry, religion, or any profession. It is the fact that the electrical energy that is life in man, and man in life, and the job he is providing, the transfer of energy, all of this has a background. All of this has a more complex working. But it comes out to be so obvious that people never notice it. They're not supposed to, of course. They're not doing anything wrong. There is a direct tie, though, between what would be the degree to which, and it's all relative, of course, in the 3D world, the degree to which any particular activity, not one man, that this psychiatrist involved with the same thing all the time, or mechanics involved with the same thing. The mechanic, in his spare time, at home, he may clean up as best he can, sit down, and read Wordsworth, for all I know. But to the same degree that in any particular act, someone is dealing more in the world of acts or with the world of facts, there is inherent in that a degree of either dressing up or no need to. And those of you that might be of a metaphorical fashion persuasion might consider dressing up the structure, the limitations, the feel, the difference between wearing overalls and having a suit and a tie, and a suit that is custom, well, even a business suit, with a tie serving no purpose and everything being locked in. You don't see any possible, God save me from having to say it again, metaphorical. And those of you are really good, symbolic in the thought process. Because the less certain is the process, the more the thought has to be dressed up. Why do people take religious ideas, those who are religious, so seriously? They are dressed up. You can hear a guy standing around the bar and you may be able to talk to him and make sexual jokes, let's say. You might be able to make racial or political jokes. And then you might say, oh, let me tell you one about a rabbi and a priest. And the guy goes, what the hell? And suddenly he's ready to fight. Suddenly he had pulled, you didn't notice it, but he went from being in overalls and drinking beer to suddenly he's got on a suit and a tie and it's tied like this. And the man suddenly looks like Cotton Mather, reincarnated. There is a dress code having to do with the closer one's activity is to the world of acts or the world of facts. And the world of acts and the world of facts also exist here in what would seem to be the whole domain of the world of facts. You got a profession. There's a way in which you think regarding dress up here. And as always, about this time of night, it's about this time of night. Oh. Every time we get to the end of the tape is what I meant to say. Every time we do this, it appears that we get to the end of the tape.